As I'm writing this, I come to realize that beating a game once is not enough, at least not if you didn't get a full hang of the mechanics. Most of my videos come from first time playthroughs. Sometimes I do a second run just in case I missed a detail or two. In the case of Assassin's Creed Liberation, I originally played it back in 2022, when it had been announced the game will be delisted and everyone thought owners of the game will have their access revoked. So I gave it a go just to say I had played it at least once, even if I already was looking to play the games in release order. Being my third time into the franchise, I came out frustrated. I had ignored the subtle mechanics, and trying to do mission constraints became torture due to how bad I was at it. But now, I played the version that came bundled with the remaster of Assassin's Creed 3, and with 5 main entries under my belt now, my experience this time around was much different. Which is saying something because I kept hearing how this was the worst entry in the series. Of course, I'm already getting ahead of myself, so it is best that we step back a bit and cover the basics. In Liberation, we play under the 3-point hat of Aveline de Grandpré, a French-African woman living in the colonial New Orleans, following her battle to liberate the slaves of the colonies and to let them escape into a life of freedom. But things start to get complicated when slaves start disappearing without a trace, being shipped off to places unknown by the Templar Order, so it is up to Aveline to investigate where they have been taken and put an end to their operation. And that's about it. Now, keep in mind, although this is a remaster, at its core, the design of this game was made with handhelds in mind, so it is relatively small compared to its counterparts. I mention this because there are aspects to the gameplay that I feel like a return to the gameplay in the Ezio trilogy, right down to buying property. And yet, this game manages to stand on its own thanks to the persona system. No, not that one. Basically, Aveline is able to disguise herself into 3 different personas, each of them made for a different situation, and as a result feeling like you're playing 3 different characters. The lady persona is basically Aveline in her day-to-day life. She can bribe guards and infiltrate most places by charming sentries, perfect for social stealth, but she cannot use weapons, has limited combat, and cannot do parkour at all. The slave persona lets Aveline infiltrate most places by pretending to be a worker, blend in easily and then strike. She can do parkour, wield the hidden blades, and most small arms, but she has the smallest health bar and gains notoriety quick, so she is more ideal for quick hit and runs.
Get over here!
The assassin persona, well, it speaks for itself. Aveline is armed to the teeth, can endure thrown battles and everything else we know and love from an assassin, but in a major change that I won't be seeing anywhere else. She is at permanent level 1 notoriety, making her a magnet for suspicious enemies, because why shouldn't she? Assassins stick out like a sore thumb, and eventually others will start suspecting the killer woman covered in armor and a pirate hat. So what do these systems mean for the game? I can't help but feel that 1. They were experimenting since they had the safety net of this being a side game, and 2. New Orleans and the Bayou are the smallest maps I've seen in the franchise so far, so they had to figure out a way to get the most out of this. For the most part, I think it works. Once you are past the early sequences and the world finally opens up to you to enjoy, you find that each persona has their own checklist, missions, and side missions. The assassin persona has the usual assassin contracts, plus she gets to kill the business rivals trying to ruin her company. More on that later. The slave persona works on liberating other slaves and also to uncover a net of bandits looking to silence them. And the lady persona gets to wrestle bears. No, seriously. Okay, aside from that, The lady helps put together a crew to help with her merchant fleet, and deal with bandits trying to take advantage of her. After all, she is the daughter of a wealthy merchant. There is really no shortage of variety here. Being a smaller game, made for the PlayStation Vita, made navigating the city and the bayou a lot more simpler and fun, and with very little fat in terms of kind of filler content people tend to hate from this franchise. The only problem is, since this was made as a handheld game first, it means a lot of what I'm describing is more suited for specific story missions, not so much for messing around the open world. Meaning there isn't that much meat in there if you really wanted to mess around or improvise, not helped by the fact that you can only switch personas at specific places. And since I'm already pointing out problems, I'll get the obvious out of the way. Apparently the beta version was rather glitchy. The re-releases fixed this somewhat, but I still found a small shred of jank that eventually became a bad memory once the game finally got going. The real problem for me, however, is the tutorialization. See, some of you may have noticed that for the past few entries, I disabled some HUD elements, namely the controls and the notifications. I can understand Ubisoft wanting players to remember the basics of their game, but my goodness, this game's notifications simply won't shut up. I wouldn't have a problem if this was a one-time thing, but these happen constantly, and they are painfully redundant. For instance, remember how I said the slave persona gains notoriety a lot faster? If you do so much as parkour or climb on buildings, even by accident, you will get a teeny tiny bit of notoriety, and wanted posters will instantly spawn on the map. Nothing unusual, of course, part of the experience at this point. Except every time you gain notoriety, you are going to be told how to get rid of it, and I mean every single time. My problem with this is that rather than being helpful, it starts to sound like the game thinks we are stupid and need to be giving a tutorial every time we need to do something. At this point, a contextual icon would have been far less insulting, and it's not like the other games are free from this, which is why I disabled them altogether. Sadly, the story isn't safe from problems either, at least to an extent. See, the deal about Evelyn is that when she was little, she got distracted and got separated from her mother.
Madame.
You there! Bantling pest! I'll have you arrested!
Fast forward then, we learn now that she lives with a stepmother and already got inducted into the Brotherhood. While the story does make a good job exploring her past and why she lost her mother, I came across a few surprises. Namely that Monsieur de Grandpré is in fact her biological father. Nothing wrong with it, it's just that it felt a bit too convenient. Even if his backstory with Abelin's mother makes sense.
Great service to my business. To our business. For it will be your husband someday.
Oh, Papa. You know I should sooner mind my own business than marry.
As stubborn as your mother, Jeanne. If only she could see you now.
But she can't.
No.
Solving the mystery about her past and some of the conflict between Assassins and Templars also gets spoiled a bit because, while the investigation is actually really fun, the story just has Evelyn literally stumble upon the solution out of nowhere. I won't spoil it because I feel this game is worth experiencing, but it just felt like they didn't know when to resolve that plot point, so they simply decided to drop it at your feet like that, which is a shame, because most of the story is actually good. More on that in a moment. If I had made this review back in 2022, I would have probably given this game a far less favorable review. See, most of my hardships with the game came from not truly embracing some of the gameplay systems. I made sure not to repeat the same mistake for this second playthrough and went out of my way to ensure I could make the most of it. Despite most of the fun being confined to story missions, the gameplay truly shines when you make the most use out of your tools. My beloved smoke bombs make a return, making no damage challenges all the more satisfying. Once I made enough money from the economy minigame, I went out of my way to buy the best weapons in the game. Suddenly, the slave and the assassin went from pushovers to forces to be reckoned with, the melee combat becoming a lot more fun.
Interfere with our plans.
But since there's always a chance you could need to do some crowd control, the game has a pistol that can let you dispatch multiple enemies. It reloads fast, and it's very satisfying to use.
Keep with her! There!
And even the lady gets to have some fun too. I made emphasis on advancing the story until the game truly opens up, because at that point, you are given a parasol that can shoot poison darts. Yeah, it's very simplistic, but there was just something fun and devilish about clearing enemies from a distance while looking fabulously fancy. Or even using berserk poison to some ingenuity and watch enemies turn on each other, making me feel like a true assassin. Now, as I said, the story is good. It's not the stuff of legend, sadly, mostly because the budget of the game is humble enough that you can count any major character with both hands and fingers to spare, but this had the side effect of feeling a little bit more focused. Liberating slaves as a theme is really good, but this game gives it a small twist with the disappearances. Some of the slaves you rescue look like they actually want to be taken. They are being promised a better life, and for the most part, they sound genuine. But this is a Templar plot, and they are never up to anything good.
We'll be released once we reach the worksite.
These terms don't concern you.
Elise, everything in this life concerns me. But I can survive a little longer, till we get south to freedom.
I don't trust this. Crispet, I promise we'll get to the bottom of this.
But
the fun part of Evelyn's journey is that it is more or less a tragedy. She's loyal to the Brotherhood and committed to the cause of ending the slavery of her people, but the Louisiana Brotherhood hides things from her, things that could harm her cause, things that inadvertently brought her pain. And uncovering what happened and why is part of what makes it interesting. It is too bad this is a side game and how small it is, because I like Evelyn a lot as a protagonist. Mainly because, despite of her impulsiveness and some other issues straining some of her relationships, in the end she is as smart and deadly as she is beautiful. I like how they went around having a woman run her father's company in the 18th century New Orleans by making it secret. It helps fit within the time period, and it highlights the fun part of the Assassin Brotherhood, and that is how they managed to operate in secret. I really wish I could say more, but that would be entering into spoiler territory. I would have loved to go into the modern day side of things, because this is presented to us as an in-universe propaganda video game by Abstergo, as a way to bring public opinion in favor of the Templars. But there isn't much to say outside of that. It's interesting, but true to the modern story, constantly fails to commit. I did enjoy the Citizen Eve side quest though. Finding out the simulation of the animals has been altered and we, the audience, is being fed lies was nice. So by the end of the day, Assassin's Creed Liberation is the weaker game in the series indeed, and yet it still managed to be a nice experience. Its only real problem is that it is confined to be a small side game that got held back by the limitations of its original platform. I would only recommend it if you are like me and want to experience everything the franchise has to offer. Otherwise, it will sadly stay confined within the Assassin's Creed 3 remaster. I would have loved to see the stealth based on your outfit to be expanded upon, but this is Ubisoft we are talking about. At the very least, I am glad I got to experience it, and if what I've seen and read is an indication of anything, there's a couple more side games that I will most likely enjoy. Especially since they expanded what many fans consider the best entry in the franchise. So I will be looking forward to see them once I raise the black flag.